Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Enlightened Mic podcast, episode 4, possibly 5. Who's to say? My name's Tim. This is Oldham. My name's Tim. This is Nitan. You may recognize him as the greatest Oldham player of all time. You can tell him that I said it. And you may recognize him from our last podcast that we did. And he's won some more stuff, and we're going to do a little bit of a tournament report situation. We're going to talk a little bit more about uprising meta, post-Stubby Hammers ban, and we're going to have a good time. Nitan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just chilling today. I was fixing up the deck box that I think a lot of people saw me carrying around in the last Battle Hardened. I made a little deck box out of a mouse that I bought, and I want to make it look better and be more sturdy, so that's what I've been doing today.
Is there duct tape involved?
There is duct tape involved.
Hell yeah. When I was a kid, I used to make all sorts of like duct tape wallets, and I think it was mostly just wallets. I didn't have enough skill to make anything else, but yeah, many wallets were made and many rolls of duct tape. Yeah, and I'll probably honestly, like, I took a bunch of videos from, I'll probably just like put that at the end of the YouTube video, just kind of clipped up, and that'll be some incentive to watch on YouTube as well as listen on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Just Spotify and iTunes though, because yeah, so cool. Let's dive in. So this last weekend we both went to the Battle Hardened Portland, which is kind of a big deal. There were like 80 something players there.
80 something. I don't know the exact number.
It was a really cool venue too. It was like in the bottom of a hotel, and it was like there was like a food court. Like it was different than different than the Pro Quest we went to. But yeah, I mean, so how did you feel kind of going into the tournaments? How did you feel about the meta? How did you feel about your hero? That just general kind of stuff like
that. So before I went to the tournament, I was a little bit worried about the meta. I knew that sort of the talk of the town was how Guardians are going to be really strong. And because of that, a lot of the people on our team, and I assume a lot of people in general, were thinking, oh, let's play Prism, because obviously Prism eats up all the Guardians. And so knowing that there's probably going to be a lot of Prisms was a little scary. And I think also Oldham is a little bit unfavored into Bravo. And so I was also worried about seeing a lot of Bravo. And then I don't think I'm really that favored into other Oldham. I think, the mirror, it's probably even. And so if there's a lot of those decks, I felt like I'm not very likely to do well. And so I was hoping for top 8, but I felt like I can't really count on that going into the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I mean, spoiler alert, you made top 8 with a really great record too. I think you had one loss on the day, and it was to a dash. Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But yeah, really, really excellent stuff. I came over and peeked at your game a couple of times, and tight play as always.
Thank you.
So so a couple things. You. And because I played Prism, and so did just one other person on our team. There were 11 Prisms there on the day, including me and him.
Okay.
And so there were a lot of Guardians there too, as far as I know. Probably about the same amount of Guardians, but I saw at least 4 or 5 running around the room. So going into the field of Prisms, were you just hoping to dodge, or did you have a plan going into them with Oldham that made you feel confident?
I definitely didn't feel confident. I did have a plan, which was to try and race them. Mm-hmm. I think that's sort of the only plan you could have if you're hoping to win as Oldham. You definitely can't outlast them. They're going to build up too many auras, and then they'll poke you to death. But I was just hoping to dodge, basically. I felt like I have maybe a 10% win rate into Prism, something like that. So whenever I match up into a Prism, I just expect to lose. And if I win, that's a really awesome, nice surprise. But that pretty rarely happens.
Right. And okay, yeah. And so I mean, let's just dive in, because I want to hear more about your. Oh wait, actually, sorry. One other question. You said that you felt like Bravo was unfavored for Oldhim. Just like quick hits. Why do you feel that way?
I think Bravo's weapon is better than Oldham's. Anathos
Mm-hmm.
can attack with just one card in hand, whereas Sledge cannot, at least without Tuna counter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bravo's ability is very good in the matchup to force through these big crush attacks, especially crippling crush, obviously. And it forces Oldhim to have the right response ready at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my build had a good amount of defense reactions. I played 3 blue staunch, 2 red staunch, 3 oasis
Mm-hmm.
respite, all hoping to just like be able to cover up the damage from cripple and crush.
Yeah. Oasis Respite is I was looking at my deck list and this is a Prism, so it's a little bit different, but that's I didn't play any copies, which I'll get into later why that was a mistake, but like it looked every time I saw somebody playing it, it looked really good. And yeah, I regret not playing it. I don't know if I like it in Bravo like some people are playing, but still, I mean, still just a really powerhouse card. All right, cool.
Definitely, definitely really good in Oldhim because you want
Yes,
to pitch on your opponent's turn anyway, so it's sort of
absolutely.
a freebie.
And that's, I mean, that's where I was at with Prism too. Is like there were so many times where I would just like block with footsteps, or
Mm.
or with my Ironhide, or I mean, I guess, well, anyway. And I just had like one resource floating, and it's just like it
Mhm.
would have been nice to gain a life and block 4 damage, but so yeah, I figured we could jump into. I've got my life pad. You've got your life pad. We're gonna
Yes.
go back and do kind of this tournament report style. So yeah, how was your round one? Who did you play and how did it go?
So I played Viserai, and it went pretty well. I think Oldhim is just pretty favored into Viserai by default. I assume there's stuff you can do in terms of the Viserai build to make it a little bit better, and like there's small adjustments you can make to the Oldhim build to change the matchup a bit. My build plays 39 blues. I used to
Mm.
play 36, and part of the reason I went up to 39 is to just be a little bit more consistent with having multiple blues on their Revel with Runeblood.
Mm-hmm.
Revel in Runeblood
Oh yeah.
uh, turns. Um, for the most part, sort of even-ish. I think he took a little bit of damage in the beginning, which doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he hit me really hard, and he built up rune chance, and I took a bunch of damage. And at the very end, I was down to 3 life, and he swung with Rosetta. I had a resource floating, so after paying for 1 arcane, it was still 3 damage coming in. And I just looked at my hand, and I had fused Oaken, so I blocked with Tunic, went down to 1, and that was the attack to end the game. I was a little bit
Nice.
worried about time in that game. We were very close to running out, so I
Mm-hmm.
figured it's safer to just go for the kill there.
Yeah, and a quick comment on that one is that like our friends had finished up and I had finished up and we walked over and I think you were one of the last like 3 matches, and
Yeah.
um I like leaned over to somebody and I was like, I'm pretty sure this Viscera is just like on a stack of blues and like should probably concede, but like some people don't, like that doesn't occur to them or whatever, and I'm like whatever. But then he played a Remembrance and shuffled some stuff back into his deck, and I was like, "Oh wait." So I thought that was
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah,
Remembrance and Viscera, I think, is just kind of a. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting.
it's fine, I think. The issue for him specifically is it just came too late. He was already at
Yeah.
like 3 life or 2 life, and so he remembers and he like I don't remember what he drew, but he maybe had a really good hand, but then was forced to block with 1 or 2 cards anyway.
Hmm.
And once Viscera is forced to start blocking, the damage output really goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Yeah. So my round one was actually the Prism Mirror, the first of two. I kind of steamrolled this one. Just like it wasn't very interesting, honestly. Like I by my turn one, so I played Genesis on his, or maybe it was, no, I played Merciful on his turn one, and then on my turn, after I drew up, um, to back to 4, I played another Merciful and a Haze Bending, and I was like, well, I don't think I could lose this game. So
Mm.
there's a little bit more about this later, but like, I think there's 2 plans you could take in the Prism Mirror, and one is you can out aggro your opponent with Heralds, or you could just generate a board state and play the Aura plan and try to out board state them, I guess,
Mhm.
and just kind of like block and then chip back and block and chip back, or just make a bunch of auras and run them over. But the funny, so it wasn't a very interesting match, but the pre-match was kind of interesting because the player wanted to set up their deck like
Mm.
kind of like a Magic player, like up in the corner, and then like
Uh-huh.
have their pitch zone like down near their like bottom of the playmat, and it was all weird. And they told me that they're like, "Hey, I just want to let you know to be clear." And I was like, "I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm sorry." Like he's like, "Okay, well, let's call a judge." And then he got like pretty salty about it. And then I just like I felt really bad, but like I won, and that's I mean, yeah, I got a bunch of auras on the board, and he couldn't come back. So yeah, let's go to round 2. Who did you face, and how did it go?
I faced another Viserai,
Okay.
another victory. This match went actually a lot better than the first one. I was a little bit worried because he played his Remembrance much earlier in the game before he had to like, start blocking. I think it was a 20 something at that point. Um, but I just managed to string together a Terra Thunder turn into a Spinal turn, and like I don't remember exactly, but stuff like that where he's
Yeah.
forced to block or forced to lose cards out of his hand. And he just took so much damage on the way there as he's blocking and discarding and stuff that I was just last turn I took 9 damage just to hit back really hard, and that was the end of the game.
Yeah. Right on. So you were in a comfortable, like you came out of the gates fast enough, and then at that point when you could turn the corner at the end, you were just in a comfortable enough spot. You just took it to the face.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the default plan in the matchup is you sort of take whatever role the Viserai gives you. If the Viserai
Mm-hmm.
forces you to like full defense, then you go full defense. If the Viserai gives you some tempo, you swing hammer. If the Viserai just builds up rune chance, you need to try and spend your whole hand dealing as much damage as you can. You can't just let them get away with it and just keep building rune chance.
Yeah, absolutely. My round 2 was actually was against a Katsu, which I hadn't faced in a while, but Katsu can be really good into Prism, depending on how you're configured. Like, if you're more aggressive, it can be really hard to beat it as Prism. It's not like unwinnable, but it's more of an uphill battle than like a more mid rangey Katsu. He got like I don't know. It's I know Katsu pretty well, and so I kind of just like blocked his important on hit triggers and like was able to like time out my auras and stuff. And there was at the end of the game, I think the only like really interesting play, and I don't know if it was correct because we were coming up against time, but like I had an arc light and like 2 blues and something else in hand. And he came in with a Kadachi and he had a card in Arsenal, and I was like, well, and he didn't have any other cards in hand. I was like, all right, well, like I have 5 health, and so if he Razor Reflexes me, then like I'll go to 1 and it's fine. So I just like I took the damage and played out Arc Lights, and then untapped.
Did he raise a reflex?
He did. Oh yeah, he did
Okay.
yes, exactly. So it was the Razor Reflex, and I said no blocks, and he said okay, Razor Reflex, and got me down to 1. I said I don't care, and then on uh on the end of his turn, or maybe I just waited till my turn, I just played out Arc Light and came in for some damage, and uh he lost. Maybe I did some. I don't know. I remember somebody telling
He
me
attacked with
that
the Herald.
yeah. That's right. So I thank you. Yes, yeah, you were watching. Great, you finished your game faster than me somehow. Yeah. So I'm just looking at my life totals, and because he was at 1, right? I'm remembering now. So I played out Arclight, and then I attacked with a Herald, and he didn't have enough cards to block because he was at 1. So
Mhm.
yeah, we I took that one, and at this point we were both 2-0. I think.
And I was really hoping not to match up against you.
Yes, indeed. We were like sitting next to each other or like really close to each other a couple times, and same with our friend Eli as well, who's on Bravo. And I kept looking at you guys like, coming for you. I'm gonna get
All
you.
day I was like 2 seats down from prisms,
Yeah,
just like surrounded by prisms all around me.
yeah. And I think you dodged into the last round, but no spoilers yet.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So round 3, who'd you play and how'd it go?
I played against the Dash. There's another one of those matchups where you need to go aggro, you can't outlast them,
Mm-hmm.
and just he got his items out pretty quickly, and I wasn't able to keep up. I play Rampart in the matchup. It's just so efficient, blocking multiple times. Um, but it's not efficient enough. When they get all their items assembled, they do 3 shots for 5 each.
Mm-hmm.
And even with optimal blocking, you have to spend all 4 of your cards to full block. And then they can just do it again and eventually fatigue.
Yeah.
So long as they can draw 3 blues every turn.
Yeah. So how do you win? Like, what's your plan into Dash? Like,
You kill them.
you just kill them faster. Yeah. I think that like I used to disagree with you, and I used to think that like Oldham was like pretty favored into Dash because just because Rampart's so good against the pistol, but also like I don't know, after playing the matchup more, I am coming around, and I mean it depends how they're set up, right? Like if they just boost into you a whole bunch, then they're probably gonna lose. But like you said, if they can just set up some people call it like the Exodia combo, then they just pistol you down, and it's pretty tough to get out of. Any other interesting notes about your round 3?
I don't think so. Just one of those games where I wasn't able to race them before
Right.
they got too much value out off pistols.
Yeah. My round 3 was actually an Oldham, which is great. That's what I like. I came to the tournament targeting Phi and Guardian, and I probably should have accounted for Runeblade a little bit more in the mirror, but whatever. And so I finally get my Oldham matchup, and I said, finally, like this is, give me that. And yeah, nothing to really report. I played Auras, and
And he couldn't keep up.
yeah, he couldn't keep up. Yeah,
Oh,
and
good.
he didn't. Yeah, he didn't like. He also like he didn't see his like zealous beltings. I don't know if he was playing Rouse or anything, but yeah. So it was pretty easy. And it felt like a buy. And he's a local player, and he was really nice, and we chatted afterwards. And he's a cool guy. I don't remember his name, but I can find it in the Discord. Cool. So okay, so you're 2-1 at this point. I'm 3-0.
Yep.
I think I'm the only one of our friend group at this point, or I think Christian was also 3-0 on Phi, or maybe he was 2-1. I can't remember, but either way. So we're all at least X1, so we're all doing pretty well. So round 4, how'd it go, and who'd you play?
Round 4, I paired up against Alexi, which is probably one of Oldham's best matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And to top it off, I just had one of the best anti-Lexi draws of my life. It was just Spinal into Terra Sunder into Oakenold into Cranial Crush is apparently actually good. I in my deck tech video I said that I think it never comes up. Apparently it does come up. If they try to set up a big combo turn, you can make them win another turn for it. Yeah. If they try to set up a 3 of a kind or Art of War, you basically tell them, nope, you can't do it this turn. You have to wait a bit longer. And then they do, and then you keep hitting them, and they lose more and more life. He was at 23 when I was still at 40. But then he did his big combo turn. I took about 20 damage. I went down to 22. But from there, he just already blocked with so many cards that his deck was pretty small. He already played I think his big combo turn had 2 Art of War and a Rain Razor, or maybe 2 Rain Razor and an Art of War and a 3 of a kind. Like, he used a lot of his big power cards on that turn.
Sure.
So he just didn't have that much gas left, and as Guardians do, I was just able to block him out for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm. Did you end up fatiguing him, or did you finish him with damage?
I did fatigue him. It's sort of a weird line about whether it is fatigue or damage, because if you get your opponent pretty low and they have to start blocking your 4 from hammer, is that
Right.
fatigue? Is that
Right.
them running out of cards? It's like you just put them in a position where they can't deal damage to you,
Yeah.
and eventually they run out of cards.
Yeah, and I mean fatigue is like it's a term that's borrowed from Hearthstone, I think. Is it's just like
Yeah.
right, you run out of cards and then your deck instead of getting a card, it starts dealing damage to you instead. And I mean that's if they're at the point where they're like out of their power cards and are blocking, that's pretty much the same thing. Um, my round. So this was round four. So
Round
yeah,
four.
my round four was against. I believe this was the round that I drew. So and this actually screwed me over later. So I played, and it was an excellent game. And my opponent I have seen around locally, and we had a really good chat. And he's a really cool guy. But he was on Briar, and I was on Prism, and um, the general consensus is that Prism is like its worst matchup is Briar. I don't know if I agree with that, or maybe I'm just lucky. I haven't played it like 100 times, but I've played against Briar maybe I don't know. I've played against Briar at least like 10 or 12 or 15 times, like a good amount, and I have a reasonable win rate against it. But so it was a really really close game. There was a lot of back and forth. I tried my best to um, mitigate his channel mount heroic turns, and I saved arc lights and took some damage to play out some things like that. And I was actually really proud of the way that I played, and like I would do things like set up like a herald in arsenal or a war tune herald in arsenal when I had a tunic counter coming up, and just block to save myself life, and then come back for the efficient attacks and like do all sorts of cool stuff like that. And so it ended up being very close. He very rightly like he pitched his channel mount heroics early so that they would come up late because he knew that the game was going to go long. And they did. And then, yeah, we got to a point where he was on one and I was on two or something like that. Both of us had spent all our equipment, and it was at the point where like I was attacking because I had like a shimmers and something else on the board, and I had a spectral and a shimmers on the board, and I said, okay, go. And he had two cards in hand, and he came in for 7. And that was like, and I just full blocked, and then we drew. And I don't know. I think that we played at a reasonable pace. I think we probably both could have played faster, but like, it was just one of those things where it's like I thought I was going to win and he thought he was going to win, and it also you were apparently not allowed to concede after taking game actions and turns.
Yep.
So I couldn't be like, "Hey, would you be willing to concede to me?" or vice versa. So yeah, we drew, and I was feeling really confident because I'm used to Magic where drawing is still worth something. But more on that later. So I am 3-0-1 at this point. You're 3-1 at this point.
3-1. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, round 5. How'd it go?
Round 5, I matched up against a Briar. It was sort of a weird Briar build. It was the explosive growth build. A lot of Earth Fuse, a lot of belittle action. Still playing Channel Mount Heroic, so there's sort of some nice synergy there. Belittle with Channel Mount. But it's still Briar, and I think Oldham is very strong into Briar. The Ice React on their channel turns is very strong. Red Staunch is very strong on their channel turns. And if you can make their channel turns not that good, they just don't have that much else they can do to you. And so it was sort of an interesting game. He did a lot of trickery with like pinging himself with arcane damage to keep creepers around so that he could use it later. Yeah, the damage to himself I don't think really mattered. Like I wasn't pushing to kill him very quickly. But I think also keeping the creepers around didn't help him that much. I don't even remember if he was able to use it a second time, despite keeping it around for multiple turns. But yeah, Briar has a hard time into Oldham, and I took advantage of that.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Oldham as well, and I don't think I've ever lost to a Briar, and like, I mean, I don't know. It seems like a bad matchup for Oldham, as it usually or has been for a while. So Right on.
What
Next
about you?
round. So this was round 5. Okay, so I played a Viserai in round 5. Um and a lot of people talk about how Viserai is favored into Prism.
Mhm.
I feel like it is, but it's close. And I also like have the good fortune of like playing with Archer, another one of our teammates who was on the last episode of this podcast, who's very good at rune blades in general, chain and Viserai. So I've had a lot of practice of like Prism into Viserai, and so I knew about like the value of creepers and like if you can like block out all the arcane damage and make it go away, it's really valuable. And like if you're playing like I like to keep a couple of arc lights in so that you can arc light their Mordred tides and things like that. So um, I I mean, it all kind of went according to plan. It was a close game, but yeah, I was able to take it, and it was pretty cool. I got to do the merciful retribution kind of cheese win where
With the
I
arcane damage.
yeah exactly. So he didn't have any arcane barrier because he, I mean I don't
Because
think
why
he
would you
was
against Prism?
yeah exactly because why would you but yeah, it got to a point where I had gotten ahead and I took some damage in order to preserve one of my spectral shields. And then on my turn, I think I made a spectral shield and like attacked, and he blocked. And then he was like, "Okay, like I'm gonna come in with this attack." And I said, "Okay, I think you're dead." And like I pitched 2 blues to make a spectral shield and play out merciful, and so I had like 2 or 3 spectrals on board, and he just took a bunch of arcane damage and lost. So, yeah, I was very, very happy about that. That was a really, really good game, though. Opponent's name was Billy, and I hope to play him again at some point. He was really great. Good player, really nice guy. Really good beard too. He had a nice, big bush on his face.
I know Billy. I think I've seen him around.
Yeah, yeah, he's a local as well.
Mhm.
I don't remember what his main store is, but yeah, he's a good guy. Would play again. Okay, cool. So yeah, we both won round 5. You're 4-1. I'm basically 4-1, but I'm 4-0-1 at this point.
Yes.
Uh, okay, so round 6, the penultimate round. What did you play?
I played against Fi. Fi
Mm,
is one of the matchups I was a little bit worried about. But I have a lot of tech into the matchup because of it. I played three Crush the Week, 2 Red Choke Slam, and they did what they were supposed to do. The matchup, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting matchups for Oldhim. Basically, every turn you have some decisions to make regarding how many cards are you blocking with, how many cards are you attacking with,
mm-hmm.
because unlike a lot of other aggro decks, you can't fatigue Fi. Fi will win the long game against you, at least most of the time. You shouldn't play to fatigue. You can't just block everything every turn in sort of very simple, direct way, the way that you would into Viscera and Briar. And so there's a lot of little decisions to make every turn as to like just how much am I blocking, just how much am I hitting back for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I really like playing the matchup. It ended up being very close. If I remember correctly, I was down to 6, and I had Oaken without the fuse, so just regular 7 damage in hand, and I chose to take another 3 damage down to 3 to play out this naked Oaken because he was already at 1, and I was like, if I can strip 3 cards out of his hand, like I'm gonna have a very hard time losing from there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what happened. He had to block. He had almost nothing left. I think he Arsenal passed with
Mm,
his last card, which I think is correct. And he just was never able to get tempo again.
yeah. And so, for the viewers at home, why can you not fatigue Phi, and why is it not straightforward to block?
I think part of it is just that Fi's big turns are so big.
Yeah.
Spreading Flames makes all the attacks bigger. Artivore makes all the attacks bigger. And he sort of always has one more attack because of the Phoenix Flame than any other deck would when they play out something like Artivore.
Mm-hmm.
And so he really gets to take advantage of these multipliers, and he just has too much damage in his deck for you to fatigue. And on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, his weapon is unlike a rune blade weapon. It doesn't care about you having played an attack and a non-attack beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so sort of on its own, it's stronger than Rosetta Thorn
Mm-hmm.
in isolation. And so the fact that it hits for 3, and then you also have a Phoenix Flame on top of that, just off of a 2-card hand, you play an attack, pitch to sword, get a Phoenix Flame, attack with Phoenix Flame.
Yeah.
That's a very reasonable base of a 2-card hand, and their big turns are so much bigger than that. So,
Yeah.
just in my experience, I found that it's really, really hard to fatigue Fi, and probably not the correct plan in the matchup.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've played that matchup a little bit, and I think that I mean it's I made a joke about this before we started about like it's basically dredge, but it's not that like but it's like it is like it's the one damage coming in all the time from Phoenix Flame, and it's like you look at the ability the first time and you're like, oh, 3, like that, you know, in your aggressive deck maybe, I don't know, but then it's like but then it reduces every time, so you're basically getting it
It's
for
almost
free
always
or
3.
1 every time. Yeah, so it's just like it's
Yeah.
really really hard
It
to come out on
also
top of.
it also sort of screws up with your ice react, pitching
Yeah.
ice to Ultimate's ability, because they can do it in response,
Hmm.
and then like you're not really getting a real card out of their hand.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with when you use that ability because of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of like, I mean, it's. I think you rightfully pointed out. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of nuance in that matchup. Um, I mean, on its face, it's straightforward, right? It's like it's a beat, you know, an aggro deck versus a control deck, but it's not quite that. My round 5 was the second Prism Mirror of the
Round
day, and or round sure, yeah, or my whatever round we're on now. My round 6 was the second Prism Mirror of the day, and my like record against Prism at either armories or like ProQuest or any sort of events is pretty good. It's like it at that point it was like 4-0, and I was like, Prism Mirror, it's just like a monkey show. It's like it's fine. It just make a bunch of auras. So I didn't think, but he was on a more aggressive Prism, so he had like phantasmaclasms and miraging metamorphs and like things or not miraging metamorph. Well, I mean, he did have those, but fractal replication as well.
Yeah.
He had all of the most aggressive, and he was just very heraldy. Um, and a couple things happened in this matchup. He was way more tech for the mirror than I was. Like he had a really like swoop under you plan. He went, I believe he
very
went,
aggro.
yeah, very very aggro, exactly. And he went second. And at the time, I was like, oh well, that's fine. I get like an arsenal. I get a play out aura, whatever. And I did have a really strong aura start. I had Genesis into like a passing mirage or pierce, something that didn't matter, some blue aura that didn't matter, some non-haze bending blue aura, and then
Sure.
he popped my Genesis, and I said okay fine, and then I drew a Genesis, and I was like tight, I'll play that. And so I actually got up a really strong board state of like 2 spectrals and like 3 auras, and I took some damage to do this because my thought process was like, well, I haven't drawn any poppers yet, and I had a lot of poppers in my deck. I had like 3 Celestials, 3 Command and Conquers. I think I had 3 or some more as well. But I never drew them until the last couple of turns of the game when they didn't matter.
Mhm.
And so he just kind of like I was just kind of forced to block here and there, and like I wasn't really able to like get in for a ton of damage, and I had some awkward hands, and so he and apparently, I talked to him afterwards, and apparently he played Prism 4 times that day, and he won all of them. And he ended up making top 8 as well. I think he was your last round opponent, which we'll get to in a second.
Was
Um,
it a Peter?
yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think it was Peter. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't end up making top 8. I missed on breakers, and I
You
was
wanna talk about round 7 first?
yeah, I know, but I do, but part of the reason I was upset, and we can get into that more later. But like Peter was like, oh, pretty sure based on the math, your next round is a win in if you're X11, and I said okay, cool. And So because we were at table 2 at that point, so we were at like the almost the top of the standings.
Yeah.
And so I was very confident going into the next round, which was round 7. Who'd you play? And
So I,
yeah, how did it go?
yeah, so I played Prism player, Peter, very heraldy Prism player, which is great for me.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that Oldhim struggles against with Prism is not the heralds, it's the auras.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me after the game he actually did play a good amount of auras. He just didn't draw them early.
Oh yeah.
And so I was able to attack him a lot and get a lot of damage through. And at the very end, he was down to 1 life, and I drew my. He had to full block the previous turn to survive, and I, with my full hand, drew my red Macho Grande. I played it out. Uh, was just hoping he didn't have a Soul Shield.
Mm.
He did have a Soul Shield, but with Soul Shield blocking for 6, and I think a Spectral Shield for 1, and he paid to no, he didn't have resources to pay for Footsteps,
Mm.
but he paid to play out Parable of Humility to like reduce 1 damage, and he blocked with Tunic, and it was almost there, but 1 damage still leaked through, and that was enough to clinch the win there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you beat him in a.
I did beat them,
Yeah.
yeah. My
So
my my 1 in 10 Prism win. I got
yeah.
it. I got it here.
Right. Nice. Okay. So that's great. So you were 6-1 at this point. So which was locked for top 8. And so
Yeah.
I remember seeing like our friends saw the red Macho Grande, and I walked over after my match, which I'll talk about in a second, and Eli, another one of our friends who made top 8, who wasn't able to be with us tonight, but he saw me and he whispered, he's like, red Macho Grande, red Macho Grande. I was like, oh, red Macho Grande. And it was just like a thing. And like Peter on the other side was just like in the tank, like trying to figure this out. And it's like, and it ended up winning you the game, which was awesome. And it was like it was fun to come over, and I
Yeah.
was like, red Macho Grande. And it was just like, oh.
Yeah, it's the card that like no one believes in, but
Yeah.
I really think it's almost necessary in Oldhim these days.
Yeah. I mean, 7 for 10 dominate is like that's fine. It's a fine rate. And especially
Yeah,
if you with Tunic too, it's 2 blues for 10 damage. Like,
yeah.
that's great.
Although in the Prism matchup, you probably don't want to Tunic it because they can respond with Arclight Sentinel. So you really don't want to give them priority.
Good point. Good point. That's what I would do if a Guardian player, and this is something I learned in the Starvo meta. If they Tunic first, you go Arclight Sentinel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so you won. You're locked for top 8. My last round was a Guardian as well. I won, which is great because that's what I came to do. This one was actually a lot closer than our Oldhim match though. So Bravo, I think, has a significantly higher chance to beat Prism than Oldhim does. It was close though. Close in the sense that like I was actually kind of worried for a second. And then I was just able to like I took a lot of damage in the beginning because he went first. He won the die roll. He went first, and then on turn 1 he showtimed for a Pulverize. Yep, and he heaved it into his arsenal, and then the next turn he also like played Terra Sunder, and then played like it was like because he made how did this work out? So he made a Surge. He played Showtime, heaved it, and then the next turn the Surge broke, so it was 9.
So blue, Terra Thunder, and then 2 blues for the
right, and
that worked.
And he also drew from he drew a card from Showtime as well.
Oh
so so he was definitely able to pay for it. So he was coming in for 15. And I think I just took the like I was looking at my hand and I was like, I gotta choose what I discard, so like maybe I just take the 15. So I did. And I don't remember what I did on the next turn. I think I just like dropped a blue aura and passed. And it was kind of touch and go for a second because he just kept coming in with big attacks. But then there was just like a turn where I was able to like block some damage, or he just like came in for Anethos 4 or something, so I blocked that, and then I played out an aura, and then the next turn I played an aura, and then like when I double aura'd, it was like really easy for me to win. Um, and yeah, that's how the matchup goes. But it was he played very very well, and I it was very close. Okay,
We say that Prism eats up Guardians for a reason. Like even
yeah,
with that like really insane turn two,
yeah.
you were still able to claw it back.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And I mean, like that's it's also just the turn one pulverize is like powerful, but I think it's a little overstated because you and I mean Terra Sunder pulverize is like absurd, right? Like that's a thing, but I think it's a bit overstated, just because on turn one, like it's a lot easier for somebody to say, okay, like I'll take 14 and just like continue with their game plan and just plan around like it's still good, but it doesn't just like win you the game on turn one. So I don't know, like
Yeah, I think part of what makes it powerful is the fact that it's a thing you can do in turn zero on the
mhm.
play that doesn't let your opponent filter their hand and still does
Yes, yeah,
advance your
that's
game
true.
plan.
That's true. That is a big part of it. I think is not letting your opponent filter your hand. Which I mean, that was like I was like sitting there with like, oh yeah, like I can block with this and like do a thing, but no, I didn't get that chance. So okay, so that was all the Swiss rounds. I'm 5-1-1. You're you're 6-1. Our friend Eli was 5-2. They called the top eight. I did not make the cuts. I won't go into it. I don't know. I got really upset
Same as you.
because I thought that I was locked, and like I don't know. Everybody probably thought I was a dick, but like a lot of people that knew me or were like locals came up and like said, "Oh, like you still did great today. Like sorry, man," and like they were like really nice, and so I appreciated that. We have a really good like local community. But I was also stoked for you and Eli, who did make top eight. So you locked in for
Mhm.
top eight, and then Eli was the. I think there
Eight.
was. Yeah,
He
but
was
was
eight.
there a second 5-2 or no? There were several 5-2s, right? Because
There are a few five. I think maybe fifth through eight were all 5-2.
okay, yeah. So there were yeah. So he was like the very edge
Just
of the bubble.
barely.
Yeah, and he made it
Yeah.
in. But that's great. I mean, yeah, he played well all day, and I think the only like the his second loss was to the undefeated this player, who actually ended up taking down the tournament. So do you want to talk quickly about your? I mean, or at length. I don't care. You want to talk about your top eight match? How did it go? Who'd you play?
Yeah, so I played the same prison player,
Ah.
and I made a big mistake in thinking that he just didn't have many auras.
Mm-hmm.
To be clear, when I was saying earlier that we talked after the match, I meant after the top eight match.
Oh,
We talked about what his deck was like.
right.
So I thought he was just like a very heraldy build, not a lot of auras.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, okay, I can actually pivot. I don't have to race him. This is top eight. There's no time limit. I can take as long as I need. I can hammer an aura every turn, and he will run out, and I'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine. Turns out that's not how that works. Turns out he still played enough auras that that was a bad plan. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember specifically there was a turn where like I was at 15-ish, he was at 15-ish, and he had played out a Parable of Humility, and I had a four-card hand that could. It wasn't a very good hand. It was like attack for eight, which would become seven because of Parable of Humility.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I'm just gonna hammer this aura because this is my game plan. This is what I decide I'm doing for this match. And I think that was just the beginning of falling farther and farther behind. Parable of Humility is just not that powerful of an aura. I think pushing 7 damage would have been a much stronger play there,
Mm-hmm.
and just like pressuring his life total, forcing him to pick between playing an aura and
Mm-hmm.
defending himself. But I misidentified that, and he built up auras, and I didn't get in any damage from there on, and he just
Wow.
poked me down until I died.
Yeah, that's wild. How different
Mhm.
too, right? Like you just like game. The first game that you guys played.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, because I decided to play different, right?
yeah.
I decided to go with a different game plan because I thought I
Mm-hmm.
identified something different about his deck. But I was just wrong about that. I only saw half his deck, and I saw the weaker half that I could beat.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I could have won if I had just stayed aggro. Um, but I definitely would have had a much better chance. Like from that point on, I think I really lowered my chances to win by hammering Parable of Humility. And I feel really bad about it because I think if I had won that match and then matched up against that Viscerai player, I probably was the most likely deck in the top eight to beat
Mm-hmm.
Viscerai, given that
Yeah.
I'm playing Oldhim.
Yeah.
And if
Agreed.
I can win that and get in the finals against that Prism player that made it to the finals, maybe I can lose to him and then Prism LLs.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I couldn't do it.
top two still gets a PTI, right? So, yeah.
That would have also been pretty cool to get a
Yeah.
PTI. But mainly was for Prism LLing that I wanted
Right.
to win
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Man. Yeah. So really, you're the reason Prism doesn't have those last two
It is
points.
my fault, yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. God damn it. Um, I'm happy. I'm happy to play Prism for another season. I don't know. Somebody pointed out on Twitter that one of the I think it was one of our like local. I don't know if he's local or if he just plays at the Fable Hobby like online league. But Tyler Broughton at he posted that um,
There was like
somebody some
someone that
yeah somebody they miscounted and like somebody that was listed as on Starvo was on Prism.
mhm.
That seems like a weird clerical error, but I mean, I don't know. So that'll get resolved eventually. I made a really funny TikTok about it. All of you should go find it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that it was a good day either way. Like I had a lot of fun. I had
Yeah,
a great time.
for sure.
Um, Played a lot of Flesh and Blood and had a lot of really great games. What about you? And what are your what are your thoughts on a couple of things? So one, how's the meta going to be going forward? Like let's assume Prism like gets like does is LL going forward,
Is
right?
LL.
Yeah. And then what would you have or what will you do like going forward assuming that and also just your any other general thoughts on either this meta or the next meta or whatever.
So if Prism LLs, obviously Guardians get stronger. And if Guardians get stronger, I think there's multiple decks that can sort of target them. Dash
Mm-hmm.
is pretty good into Guardians. Icelander is pretty good into Guardians. Dromai, well, Dromai's decent into Ultim. I don't know if Dromai's great into Bravo because
Mm-hmm.
Bravo plays way more Phantasm Poppers.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like in Flesh and Blood, in my mind, the three big archetypes are aggro, defense, and value. Where obviously aggro, you're trying to kill your opponent. Defense is something like Oldhim, trying to not take too much damage until your opponent runs out of powerful things. And then value is stuff like Prism, where you play something that gives you more stuff later
Yeah.
on. Dash items are also a good example of that. And there's sort of the rock, paper, scissors there and how they match up against each other. And so I think in the new meta, assuming Prism LLs, Bravo is probably like sort of the de facto good, strong deck. And then as people adjust to that, he will get targeted more. And then whatever's targeting him will become the best deck.
Yeah.
I think probably most likely Dash. I think Dash has the best chance of being well positioned in the new meta.
Yeah. So what if
But we'll
what
see.
if Prism didn't LL? Do you think that Dash is still a solid pick into this meta?
Yeah, I think so. Dash, from what I've seen, has a pretty good Prism matchup. The fact that you can just shoot a pistol for two at whatever aura they play is
Mm-hmm.
just solid value, basically. You compare that to like what Guardians do, where they have to pitch a blue and like their whole action point on it.
Yeah.
Their one thing per turn is popping an aura, and then Dash on the other hand, like boost, spend a steam counter to pop an aura. It's
Yeah.
like night and day.
Yeah. one Hundred
Um,
percent.
and Dash can try and race the aggro decks with a boost sideboard plan, and can try to outlast the Guardians with a pistol plan. And I think I don't exactly know how she plays into Prism, but I know Dash is just solid into
Yeah.
Prism. So I think Dash has a good chance of being a good pick in the new meta.
Yeah. I don't know how Dash plays into Fi. Um, but I mean, if that's like your only like really bad matchup, that might not be so bad. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious. I'm really curious about how the meta is going forward. People complain about this meta, but they complain about every meta. So I really like this meta personally. I think there's a lot of viable decks. Like I mean, like a
Yeah, I've been playing Rhino.
yeah. No, I think Rhinar is actually like I think Rhinar was a fine choice for this weekend. I almost did it, and I don't
You
regret
regret
bringing.
it?
I do not regret bringing Prism. I'll tell you that much. I was just like I mean I decided this too the Wednesday before where it's like we were at your house with all the dudes and we were testing, and
All the
I was
dudes.
all the dudes, yeah, all the Team Galaxy Brain guys, and
Yeah.
yeah, Archer, Carl, Eli, like all the, and like everybody was like, look, like everybody's gonna jump on Guardian, and like Fi is gonna get pushed out a little bit, and like you
And
should just
what beats
play,
Guardian?
yeah, you should just play Prism. I like
Yeah,
if
and
so
you have
if
the rep.
yeah, exactly. And I have a lot of reps on it, and so like I'm really happy with my I even though I did get a little salty about the top 8 situation. I am really happy with my record, and I think I played really well. And like if I had played like a little bit faster, I probably could have gotten 6-1. But like c'est la vie. I think
Yeah.
like if I had gotten the exact same matchups, because if I had gotten the exact same matchups as Reinar, I it would have been harder. um,
Yeah.
I
I
think
got
I think
sorry.
I think I would have been I think that like my matchups that I just steamrolled would have been a little closer, but I think I could have gotten there. I think it would have just been different. But I I don't know. I'll bring Reinar to a competitive event at some point, but it just wasn't the time.
Mhm.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah. I was gonna say that I got super lucky with my matchups. I saw let's count up. I saw two Viscerais, one Briar, one Fi, one Lexi,
Mm,
Dash, and only one Prism. And
yeah.
you know, as I said, like Dash is sort of archetypically good into Guardians, but I
Mm-hmm.
think with this aggro sideboard plan that I have, it's actually pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even Oldham favored, but I'm not confident enough to say that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and the fact that only
it depends on if the dash like if they run like unmovables and like sinks and stuff, it might be a little harder.
yeah, the more D reacts they run, the harder the matchup gets
Mm-hmm.
for Oldham. Um, yeah, and I saw only one Prism in Swiss, and that Prism was on a Herald build, which really helped me be able to win that game. So I think if my matchups were a little bit different, I probably don't make top 8, and I just got lucky in how I navigated my way through the pairings.
Yeah. I mean, well, how you know? uh, yeah. I mean, like luck is where preparation and opportunity meet. And I mean, like the thing too is like I think that the matchup lottery is another kind of overstated thing about this meta too, where people are like, oh, it's just a matchup lottery, but like okay, like the most represented deck, even when Fi like even with W's Fi and everybody's like on that deck, it's like the most represented that was according to the LSS data, and so maybe it's skewed based on whatever, but like the results that they reported were that the most people that were on Fi was 14%. And so 14%, that's like so out of 80 something people, what is that like 12?
Well,
No, wait, 12 something like that.
maybe
Uh
like 10.
yeah, it's like 10 to 12 people, and it's like so like you have a 1 in 8 chance of facing Fi. Or in this case, like there were a bunch of people on Prism, you have a 1 in 8 chance of facing Prism. And in 7 rounds, you face them once. Well, in 8 rounds, you face them twice because top 8. But
This has been a pattern for me for whatever reason. I remember there was I think two pro quests I went to. I faced the same Prism player last round of Swiss and first round of
oof,
top 8.
yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. And this was the first time that I won even one of those games.
Yeah, well, hey, it's 1 in 10, right?
One in
Um,
10. Yeah.
but yeah,
Something like that.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, luck is where skill and preparation cross paths. They cross paths. You made top 8. You walked off with a glorious stack of $125 or whatever, and
Yeah. fancy schmancy playmat.
Oh yeah, show us. Yeah, do a little flex on the. Ooh, that is actually kind of a sexy playmat.
It's a pretty good playmat.
Yeah, the Centauri Saber. Yeah, no, it's a great. It's a great playmat, and definitely, I kind of wish that they came out with a playmat that was actually the card flex, but like, just like flexing on people. Yeah.
The art is not iconic enough. You can't
Yeah,
make
that's
that.
true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Maybe that could be like an armory prize or something.
that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's it for today. Nitan, thanks for joining us again. I'm sure you will be on the podcast again at some point.
I will return.
We love having you. For those of you watching at home, if you haven't seen it yet, you can go and see the greatest deck tech of all time on YouTube. But really, it is a really informative. It's a little bit longer. It's great for new players, old players. Anybody who just wants to get like that extra little bit of spice in their Oldham list. Nitan talks about his 2-time top 8 Oldham list, and I believe you took the refined list that's in that YouTube description to maybe with a couple of changes.
Yeah, with a few changes. I think the main thing I changed was I added Blue Staunch response to Edge for the Guardian matchup. But the list is very similar. And also I think really you shouldn't try to like copy my list card for card. Part of the choices I make is based on who I'm expecting to face, and your local meta is going to be different than mine.
Yeah. And I mean I think that's just generally good advice for any deck that you copy paste is just take a look at it and make tech decisions based on what you think is going to be your local meta. But if you go ahead.
If you win with it, I will happily take credit for my list getting whatever achievement you got.
But either way, it's a great video. Go check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. If you're watching this, you know where to find it. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And Nitan, I'll talk to you later. And everybody else, have a great night. This was the Enlightened Mic podcast, episode 4 or maybe 5. Who knows? I'm Tim. That's Nitan. All right, guys. We're doing Man on the Street today, so say hi.
Hey, Tim.
No, we drove here in Eli's mobile. Nitan woke up exactly at the time we came to pick him up.
I drove
here
to understand about $500 shoes.
Are you wearing $500 shoes?
Are you wearing $500 shoes?
Yeah.
Dude.
Those shoes are pretty fucking lit, though, so that's strong. We're here at the convention center, or hotel lobby or whatever. Back to place Flex Blood. I'm on Prism. I know one of our boys is on Prism. We got somebody on Guardian. Got somebody on Bravo as well. So we're got a diverse field full of good decks. Yeah, let's get it. How are you feeling about your matchups right now?
I'm a little nervous. I think I have a good chance into this.
Oh wait, hold on. You're nervous and you have a good chance into Viscera. Okay, what else?
Good chance into Briar, good chance into Icelander and Dromai, but I'm very afraid of Prism, obviously, and Bravo is pretty scary and Defy is pretty scary.
You just dodged Prism, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Easy. Nick, what are you playing?
I'm playing Dromai.
Hell yeah. You feeling good?
No.
Tight.
Got him with the old pitch stack.
The pitch stack no confuse?
Like 3 Oak Confuse.
So, did you like just recently buy that mouse box, or like did you buy the mouse so that you could get your
I got the mouse because I have wrist problems.
Okay.
And then I wanted to like put my deck in here a long time ago, like when Pro Quests were happening.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't fit. Like I think it's because I didn't have like the same hard cases that I have now. So things like were wobbly, stuff like that.
You want to show the audience here? I'm recording without you knowing, so that's great. Yes, look at how perfectly. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Deck, 9 pieces of equipment, hero card, dice and tokens.
That's honestly okay. That's like a lot better than a lot of like fancy ones that have like pull out dice trays and stuff.
This will not work if I had one more piece of equipment. But as is, it's perfect.
Yeah, so it's a sign, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, this is video content.
Yeah.
What are you at? What's your record?
5-1.
You've dodged Prism so far.
Prism every
So
round.
far.
So far.
What about you? Where are you at? What's your record?
3-3.
That's okay. You're gonna make top 32. Get that EXP. Hold on. Red Macho Grande boys.
I think you got it by exactly one.
Would you show me
I
the
believe.
higher one?
Hold on, let me check just to make sure.
Tim, are you 5'2"?
Nice job. I almost blocked the other way.
Ton,
last
did you
turn,
just
babe. I
fucking
did.
beat Prism? What the fuck? Ton, what's your
That's what I was
record?
thinking. It's like if I leave 2 shields there.
Hey, Ton, what's your record right now?
6-1.
Oh my god, somebody's locked for top 8.
Congrats on top 8.